And this is kind of tongue in cheek, but I mean, if you can talk politics with this individual by this time in the relationship, things are going pretty good. Hello, Psych fans. Welcome to another fun-filled, action-packed day of psychology. We are excited to have you on board. Once again, to kick things off, my name is Spencer, and excited to be here with you to finish up our discussion on dating and courtship and marriage, so all the stages of dating. And with me to make sure that I stay on track and say the right things is...
Allison over here in my recording closet. You're too kind, Spencer. I have a feeling more often than not, I'm the reason we get off topic. Um, so it's a joint effort here to
Right.
keep us going, keep us
Partners in
pointed in,
crime.
in the same direction. I am very excited to be having this conversation tonight. I started listening to our recording from last week's episode. I went, I jumped the gun a lot, so I'm gonna try and jump the gun less.
No, I
Um,
hope you continue to jump the gun because the things you say are so great. I love them. I really do. And I think they bring I think that's the best part about this. They bring a perspective that maybe I forget or I don't always share the right way or yeah, so I mean they're good. Don't hold back. Don't hold back. No,
well,
let it go. Let it
we'll
go.
we'll see what trouble I can get us into today. It'll be a grand
Awesome.
old time. So we left off as we were moving from serious dating,
Hmm.
serious relationships to courtship. I've never really thought about the difference, so I'm very excited to learn, Spencer, about what um I have a feeling I'll have a lot to say again, but I'm curious. Let's have you set the terms and the definitions and all the things.
You betcha. So yeah, we talked about casual dating, we talked about serious dating, and now we're diving into that courtship phase of things, which I think is really huge. And I want to give a nod out to some of my students. For those of you that don't know what I do, so obviously I've been teaching for a number of years, but I've started teaching incarcerated men fatherhood skills. And it was so interesting. We were talking today, and they're like, you know what? People just don't date anymore. They just don't date the right way. And I jumped on that and I was like, well, tell me, what do you guys think we're missing? And they're like, well, people just jump into dating and it's just so fast and all of a sudden it's like 0 to 100. I'm like, really? So you think it'd be good to have some stages of dating? They're like, yeah, we really need some stages of dating. And one guy even said, you know what he said? He said, we're missing courtship. And I said, yes.
You
Wow,
are kidding
you're
me right
spot
now.
on. No, I was like, what dude, has the term courtship, on the top of his head or on the tip of his tongue, it just blew me away. So we're going to dive in here. We're going to talk a little bit about courtship and courting versus dating and what that has to do. So, dating is still, and one of the things I want to point out as we go through this process, the casual dating, it's a little bit easier time to separate or part ways. So if things are not working, stuff like that, it's still a reasonable time to get out of the relationship. Even if you're serious dating, it's still a really good, reasonable time to get out of the relationship. And I say that, and as Allison is like, oh, wait, Spence. I say that because, you don't want to get all the way to engagement or even to the altar and go, oh, crap, I don't really want to marry this person. And that's the reason why we have all these stages. Anyway, you were going to say something good. I know.
Well, no, I was just going off on that. It's anytime you break up with someone, it's going to be painful.
Hmm.
Even if it's just because you're embarrassed or even just because you're kind of like, that didn't go the way that I wanted. Anytime you do that is going to be uncomfortable. Echoing what you're sharing, Spencer, the more connected you get with someone, the harder it is to unconnect your lives. I think is
Hmm.
kind of what you're saying. Um, and so the more steps you make towards the altar, the more emotional energy and ties you have made with that person. So it
Hmm.
does have a greater lasting impact to break up with that person. So I'm
Hmm.
just kind of defining terms a little bit. Anytime that you leave a situation or a relationship, there are going to be feelings, but the more that you're
Hmm.
interconnected, the more deeply attached to someone, the harder it is going to get. Something I'm not going to bring up here because it gets messy. But we're going to talk about that little T word that I love so much, trauma.
Hmm.
Um, anytime, and as we've talked about, everybody has trauma. Anytime trauma is part of your life, anytime there are wounds and the other person you're with is wounds, complicates things. So that was really the thing that I wanted to say. Because when you said if it's not working, and I'm like, how do you know if it's not working?
Hmm.
Because I've been in two relationships, as I mentioned last week. One of them was not working. There was every red flag in the book, and there was everything that should have told me to run away. And I very much pulled a Taylor Swift and I said, "But Daddy, I love him." Yeah, because I had a lot of daddy wounds. So of course I loved him, and of course I wanted to be
Hmm.
needed.
Hmm.
So there's that kind of not working where there are legitimate red flags he's asking you to cut off from. Your partner is asking you to cut off from family, from friends, ginormous changes of life. Um, they don't treat you well. They don't consider your feelings. They don't ask you questions. They don't engage. Or maybe it's just like you really love pickleball and they really love reading. Like
Hmm.
some of these things are just you talk through it and you figure it out. Is this a deal breaker for me or not?
Hmm.
But if you are in a relationship and you feel like you spend more time alone than you do in the relationship, that might be something to consider. So, Spencer,
Yeah.
when you're saying if it's not working, things like that. Either there are
Hmm.
big red flags that you don't know what's happening, you don't know if you're coming or going, or if it's just you're finding out your interests don't align. Now, maybe if you like pickleball and they don't, that's not a deal breaker. But if
Are you sure?
I don't really, I'm not really into pickleball. My
Hopefully
family
it won't
is.
be.
They're huge, but it's things like that. If you are tired of going and doing that sport alone, or if you're tired of going and doing that activity alone, and then you come back and you don't reconnect,
Hmm.
that's not going to get better with time. So
Hmm.
paying attention to those pieces. Are there things you're doing alone that just become heavier and heavier and heavier because you're tired of doing them alone? That is a flag. Not going to give it a color, but that is just something to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So there's that. On that flip side is trauma and attachments. So I'm gonna
Hmm.
I might wait because I'd love a better description of courtship before I like deep dive into attachments. So
You bet.
preview, but I do just want to mention traumas mean triggers.
Hmm.
Triggers are things that happen. So trauma can be created in relationships, and you
Hmm.
cannot heal that trauma alone. So if it was created by a relationship with another human being, doesn't matter if it was your mom, your dad, your grandpa, whoever it was, if your trauma, this wounding, this pain was created by another human being, you cannot heal it on your own. You
Hmm.
need another human being to help heal your trauma. Sad but true. This
Hmm.
whole idea of just go off into the woods and find your zen and become a hermit. I know I want to do this all the time. I just want to be a hermit and I just don't want to have to deal with people anymore. But if your hurt came from another human, the only way you can do is heal it with another person. And so you need to be in a relationship in order to do that.
Hmm.
That means that relationships will be uncomfortable. That
Oh,
means
messy.
relationships are messy and they stretch you.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not so much, well, it hurts and it's messy. Well, welcome to the human race. If a
Hmm.
relationship hurts and it's messy, that does not necessarily mean you drop it.
Mm.
But it is still another case of is there repair after it gets
Yeah.
messy?
Yeah.
Is this person supportive? And will they talk with you with things? Will they communicate? Can you support each other? So
Hmm.
just because it's messy, just because it hurts, does not mean you drop it, but it does mean you communicate more and more and more to see if you can work through those triggers and those pain points. Does the other person even want to look at it? Because if the other person doesn't want to look at it, also sort of a red flag. Because
Hmm.
if you were the only person putting effort into this, can't have a relationship with one person.
Yeah. That's a one-sided relationship.
And that kind of isn't a relationship at the
No,
end of it all. So
no.
anyway, I wanted to, as you were saying, if you run into things, I wanted to define some what are we running into here.
Yeah.
So on to courtship.
No, I love it. It sounds like we've got the beginnings of another podcast coming.
Yup.
Right? Yeah. There's always so much and so many different angles to talk about. But you're spot on. And one of the things that came to mind while you were talking about this, and I want to string this along these different stages. A lot of this has to do with your level of commitment, right? And that's huge. If we're back in the whole casual dating, stuff like that, there is very limited connection, right? And as we get into the serious stage, we're a little bit more committed. And that leads us into now the courtship phase where we are even more committed. So let's talk about what that looks like, because I think it's huge to unpack here. Dating is a very and that's the thing is we look at dating as an overall term, but really dating has two stages and then we're done. All right, and then we get into serious land. So, for example, in dating, and hopefully this isn't the case. If it's ever been you, I really think you should reconsider your life choices and stuff like that. But if you get into a casual dating relationship and start talking about marriage, that may be a little bit ahead of the game, or maybe putting the cart before the horse, right? In which it's
Or if you're telling the other person, I've had a vision of us kneeling across the altar, run,
right,
just
yeah,
run.
yeah. That casual dating is not the time, not the place, not the right time to do that. And again, I want to reiterate that we are needing to walk down these steps together. And I know some people can jump into a relationship and be really impatient, right? Especially if you've dated a lot of people. Dating has been hard. It's been a really stressful thing, and so you're like, all right, I just don't want to start all over, blah blah yada yada, and it's hard. Yes, it is very, very hard, but don't jump the gun and already talk about marriage right out of the gate. It is when we get to courtship that we should even bring up or start discussing any thoughts of, you, me, an altar? What do you think? There's all different types of ways to approach it, but that's usually where we are coming to the situation of saying, hey, I'm really thinking, I want to spend a lifetime with you. And so you start to act and behave accordingly. So during this courtship phase, one of the big primary things that you're doing is you are having discussions about marriage. And you're having discussions about what that looks like and what the future holds for the two of you as far as what that plan might be. Now, some of you might sit back and say, well, she's going off to medical school, and I don't know what the heck I want to do in life, and I'm trying to still figure out what's going on and happening. Or you could be I mean, in this whole online dating world, if you get to a courtship stage, then you're like, okay, you're clear across the nation from me. How in the world do we make this work? So those are the bigger conversations that you start to have about what does life look like when we come together and build a life together. And these conversations are important because if you don't start talking about these things, and there again, a courtship is still a phase in which, pulling back and saying, okay, this really isn't going to work, the logistics or whatever the case might be, or the commitment's not there, or whatever the problem might be, there's still that option, but you're having more deeper conversations. The other thing that happens too is that your dating, like the things you do on those dates, really begins to change. This is the point in time where you're like, oh, hey, you want to go out on a date? Yeah, let's go to Home Depot and check out tile or carpet. Or what do you think our apartment's going to look like? I mean, we chuckle at that, but there's a lot of truth to that. The whole way of going out on a date is different. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're having different conversations about what things look like. And then at the same rate, both individuals are sitting back and saying, okay, since I'm going to take this to the next level, what are some appropriate or inappropriate relationships that I need to fix? And a lot of people are like, wait a minute, what? What did you say? What do we have to do? Yeah, so this is a time, and I will throw this out, I'll throw myself under the bus. When my wife and I got to this point, I had to sit back and make some judgment calls. And some of these judgment calls that were made were, who do I want to continue to associate on such a personal level? And is it still good to have friends? Yes. Have friends of the opposite sex? Sure. Yeah. Having friendships are still good and still okay. However, if you are still having relationships where you're having deep conversations or spending lots of personal time with somebody of the opposite sex or somebody that you are attracted to, if they're not of the opposite sex, then there's grounds to ask some very important questions and say, okay, how committed am I to this individual, to this person, to this situation? And I'm sure you could pinpoint a whole lot of movies, Allison, about what I think what like My Best Friend's Wedding or some other movies and stuff like that come to mind of how that did not necessarily happen or that didn't necessarily work out the way that it was supposed to. So that being said, there's a lot of different things for us to look at and unpack here. So we are having conversations with other people. I had to have conversations with some of the girls that I had grown really close to, and that I was having still some really complex personal conversations with. I mean, we weren't necessarily going out on dates. We weren't necessarily seeing each other socially a whole heck of a lot, but there were some that I had to say, hey, you know what? We can no longer move forward at being such close relationships because I'm honing in on this said individual that I want to extend my level of commitment. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? That's one of the reasons why we're cutting ties with people who are potentially close, is because we don't want there to be problems later on down the line and people are like, oh, well, you're close to so and so and everything. There again, we're not trying to ruin or wreck relationships and different things like that. But if there's any chance of physical attraction towards somebody, then we have to have a conversation of what that looks like. And like, okay, we're not going to go, to the concert or bowling or to Disneyland or whatever, we're not going to do all these activities because I'm honing in on this person that I have found that I love, that I want to show my total and complete commitment to. So that's important to unleash. You have thoughts, go for it.
Um, Maybe slightly silly example. Um, Not the right way to frame it. Anyway, diving in. I struggle with the idea of that men and women can't be friends, or if we're talking about same-sex couples, that you can't have friends outside of the relationship. Big believer, you need friends outside of the relationship. This is important. This matters. And Spencer, as you were saying, it's not just that you're going to magically one day look at somebody and go, I'm going to go have sex with you because I'm going to go have sex with you because I'm attracted to you, whatever.
Hmm.
I view that sort of intimacy as a choice.
Hmm.
And the reason why what you're saying is so important, we gravitate to what we spend time in.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So if you are going and having these deep, meaningful, connective conversations with people who are not your partner that you are wanting to build additional connections with, you're building those connections other places. So, and where you build connections, that's kind of where the intimacy funnel comes in.
Hmm.
Even if it's simply an emotional deepening funnel connection, that's energy you are not giving to your partner.
Hmm.
And I love that you brought up My Best Friend's Wedding. Like, he's been carrying this torch for forever, and
Right?
he's like still putting fuel on that flame this whole time without really realizing it. And then all of a sudden is angry at her that she would try and sabotage things. I'm like, dude,
Hmm.
hello, mixed messages. We have
Right?
problems. But I think that that's another piece I want to add to what you shared is, and this is a conversation that I've had with my partner, a number of times. Now, our partners, we are not meant to be everything to everyone. We're also not
Hmm.
meant to be everything to our partner.
Right.
We're not meant to be that. I
Hmm.
think for a healthy, long-term, sustainable relationship, both parties need a support system
Hmm.
because your partner, when they're going through stuff, cannot show up for you in every way you want them to. That being said, when you go to one person of your support system and you emotionally make them your partner, that's a problem.
Hmm.
Going to someone else to vent about your partner instead of going to your partner to have that conversation, that's a problem.
Ooh, yeah.
I mean, even a therapist, like your partner gets first dibs on what's going on with your relationship.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and yes, I hope you're going to a therapist and I hope
Hmm.
you're talking through things. I really hope you are.
Hmm.
but it helps your relationship to be stronger if your partner knows that that's happening first. Because it leads, and this is coming from someone who went through a very painful marriage that could not have those conversations. I didn't feel safe enough to have those conversations. So a lot got hashed out with that therapist, and my poor husband got a lot of surprises.
Mm,
Now, there's a lot of layers there. I'm not trying to chuck blame at anyone, and I'm trying to offer myself grace because I certainly know I could have handled it differently, but I was the product of what I was at the time, and I did the best that I could with what I had.
right.
Those same habits, though, had a tendency to creep into the new relationship because I only had an old relationship to work off of. So it has taken a lot of work to let the partner get first dibs on what's happening in our partnership
Hmm.
and to have her know what's actually going on before I just come to her and I'm like, so in therapy, I talked about this and this and this, and this is what you're doing wrong. No, 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 no. So this is me going off on a random tangent, which
No,
is
this is good.
all just to say, once you pick someone, yeah, they're maybe they don't actually care about high fantasy novels in Brandon Sanderson's world, and they really don't care about all of the things. That's
Hmm.
fine. You have other friends, talk to them about it. Or
Hmm.
maybe they're really fascinated in some aspect of history that you could take or leave. Like, yeah, you
Hmm.
don't have to talk about everything all the time. But if you keep going to one other person and sharing all of that stuff with them, it is
Yeah.
a lot easier to forget you picked your partner. And it
Hmm.
is a lot easier to go, well, how come they're more invested in me? How come this other person cares about me more and will talk to me about these things more? Because being in a relationship with someone is hard work and you're not going to
Yeah.
get it right. And the person you're choosing that you're in courtship with, eventually engaged to, eventually in a long-term commitment with, life gets hard. Spencer, you have more years of experience with this than I do. Children come into play, animals
Hmm.
come into play, mortgages come into play, jobs come into play. All of these things happen. And so if you're going other places to have those hard conversations with someone who's not in the midst of it with you,
Hmm.
you miss out on that connection
Yeah.
and you decrease the ability to deepen your connection. So courtship is sort of your first beginning part of figuring out how to go to that person when it gets hard, not to everybody else. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have like a group of like 5 people that are on my, oh crap, life got heavy, please help list,
Hmm.
but I go to them in rotation. So so I'm not
Good.
just going to one person and saying you need to fix this for me or life is scary or it's hard. I have a group so that
Yeah.
I'm not deepening and deepening and deepening a relationship outside of this core relationship that I've chosen.
Hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
something to keep in mind in courtship is how are your relationships functioning?
Yeah.
Are you going to someone else other than your partner? Now, processing is something totally different. You guys are listening, probably going, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. It's because we're humans. Nuance is complicated.
Oh, so much.
It's stuff. But it's still different going to someone and go, I am so frustrated. I don't know what to do. Because if you're a
Hmm.
verbal processor, I need to get it out so I know what in the heck I'm trying to say. But then you immediately, once you figure it out, you go to your partner and say, hey, there's this thing. I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah.
Versus going to everybody, trying to get sympathy, trying to get everybody to agree with you to say what a mess it is, and then go to this person with a whole bunch of evidence and say, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Those are two entirely different experiences. So if
Hmm.
you're moving towards courtship, I would invite you to move towards the first instead of the latter. If you
Hmm.
want to truly build a connection that is going to last life upheaval.
Hmm.
Okay, I will now get off my soapbox. Continue,
No,
Scott.
that's said beautifully because on the flip side, that's how you know if this person is the one you want to be courting, right? Can you go to them and have these conversations? Do they make you feel seen and heard and understood? That's a really important thing. If that's really important to you, then that's something that they should be providing. They should be checking off some of those important boxes. Now, like you said, they don't check off all of them probably, but they should check off some major important ones for each and every one of us. And so that's kind of how you know, hey, we're getting into a state of courtship here, right? Because we're talking about marriage, we're having deeper conversations about what life looks like joined together, And I feel like those hard conversations, those tough things to talk about, is where, things ought to be. And this is kind of tongue in cheek, but I mean, if you can talk politics with this individual by this time in the relationship, things are going pretty good,
Well, and also that you can disagree and the relationship is solid. But I
Yeah.
think that's something we have lost in the world we live in.
Hmm.
Well, this person needs to agree. This person needs to be right in lockstep with me in order for us to have a relationship.
Hmm.
Now, I think there are some things that you and your partner do need as bedrocks
Hmm.
that you are kind of in sync with, but that's based on your values. And like I can't give you a list and say these are the things you need to agree on
Right.
in order for
Yeah.
your relationship to last. That is not fair of me. That is not my right. That is something you need to do that you sit down and go, this value is a deal breaker for me. Or
Hmm.
this value, it's a value to me. If they respect that I live that way and I respect they live that way, great.
Hmm.
But you need to determine what those foundational principles are that do need to be in sync, and then you get to decide what things aren't. Politics, though, is a pretty good example. If you
Right.
can if you can bring up and go, "Hey, I think this or I feel this," and the person can go, "Oh, could you tell me more? I'd love to
Hmm.
understand." And then the other person goes, "Well, actually, I feel this way, but can I tell you more?" Like, so if you can have an exchange around those things, you're in great shape.
Hmm.
Random example. Um, I used to be a teacher of a group of young people going to college, and we were doing a religious class, part of our discussions. And mm, pardon me, we were talking about Zion and what Zion looked like, and everybody in the class went, "It means that everybody agrees."
Hmm.
And I'm like, that is not what Zion is, because when I grew up with it, it was this discussion that Zion is one heart, one mind.
Hmm.
And so we've been led to believe that that means everybody agrees.
Hmm.
One heart and one mind is the ability to respect someone so much you can disagree and
Hmm.
still live in harmony with them.
Yeah.
So the same thing goes for courtship. You don't necessarily have to agree, but can you talk about it and share why it's important to you?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So compare and contrast here. So dating, for example, dating doesn't account for readiness into marriage or long-term commitment. However, if we look at courtship, courting is like a promise to make a commitment to marriage. So we are at a very pinnacle time when we're in a courtship. And I will go so far to say courtship is a huge part that most relationships are lacking. People are not going through these stages. People are not asking these hard questions. People are not gathering enough information. Um, they're not going through and cutting ties with inappropriate relationships that may get in the way. All these different things. We're 0 to 100, you know, right to marriage. So we date for a few weeks and boom, we get married.
Or
Um,
or even if you date for longer, if you're still not having the conversations, you're not really preparing yourselves for engagement.
right.
You're talking about hard conversations. Let's give some
Hmm.
examples of hard conversations.
Oh yeah.
Some of these are going to be silly, some of these are going to be more serious, but I think all of them can inform wonderful conversations to be having. One,
Hmm.
how are you going to handle money?
Yeah.
Like,
Are we going to do a joint account or not? Do we do separate?
how are we going to handle funds in the home? Who's
Yeah.
paying rent or who's paying the mortgage? Who's doing groceries? Who's doing the
Hmm.
internet bill? Like, actually sitting down and having a game plan. How
Hmm.
much debt is each person bringing into the relationship? How are you going to handle that?
Hmm.
What are educational goals? What do we feel is important in that educational round? Is it degree or bust? Is it vocational training? Is it I just have this really great job that I really love?
Yeah.
There are no wrong answers to any of these things. I'm not trying to imply that like these are
No.
deal breakers,
But these are the conversations we should be having.
but these are important. Like, do not get married.
Hmm.
An acquaintance of mine, her sister got married having
Hmm.
not really had that conversation. And after getting married, realized that her partner was in $20,000 worth of debt that she didn't know
Oh.
existed.
Oh man. Oh.
So, and I'm like I'm saying, debt in the world we live in is sort of a factor of just where we live,
Right.
but don't hide that from your partner. Like,
Yeah. Don't let it be a surprise on the wedding day.
we would hope that those are things you're talking about. Like, is there a game plan for getting out of debt? Are
Mm-hmm.
you gonna stop going out to dinner like one more extra time a month and you're putting that in your savings so that then you can pay off debt?
Mm-hmm.
Or like is there some sort of game plan? So just
Mm-hmm.
having discussions about money in general, how do you view money? Is
Mm-hmm.
it this thing that it's always scarce, there's never enough, and so you have to scrimp and save? Are you of the view that money is abundant and there will always be enough and you'll always be taken care of?
Mm-hmm.
Whatever end of the spectrum you're on, but if you and your partner are on two opposite ends of that spectrum, your spending's going to be wildly different, and that's going to be hard to work with.
Oh, big time.
So,
Big time. Yeah.
so just having these conversations, you don't have to change the other person, but start being aware of the obstacles that might put in your path
Mm-hmm.
if you aren't on the same page.
Yeah.
Pets. Are you pet people? Like if you
Or are
absolutely
you
love
not?
animals and you want five of them and your
Mm-hmm.
partner is allergic to everything, or they have really bad OCD and do not want pet hair everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
have a conversation with that sooner than later.
Yeah.
Or how many kids do you want? Do you want kids? Do you not want kids?
Do we want to
Um,
adopt?
do we want to adopt? Are we fostering? Like
Mm-hmm.
so many different ways. What are your family relationships like?
Yeah.
There's a family I know in my community that her husband and his brother get together every Friday night for a game night.
Mm-hmm.
If they hadn't talked about that, I'd be asking, "Where's my date night?" Oh wait,
Yeah.
you're
Right.
with your brother. So there are just so many things, big and small,
Mm-hmm.
that aren't deal breakers, but aren't fun surprises either. So the
Right.
courtship phase, before you put down money for jewelry on a ring,
Mm-hmm.
chat and
Yeah.
find out. Or are they going to buy you this really expensive ring that you don't really want, you don't think is needed as a symbol of your relationship? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
have that before you go ring shopping.
Yeah.
Just so many pieces. Do forks go up or down in the dishwasher? How many towels do you use in the bathroom?
Oh man, what way does the toilet paper go? Does
Toilet
it go
paper,
under or over?
it goes over. It
It
always
goes
goes
over.
over. It just always goes over.
Oh, that's great.
So silly.
Um,
But if that's
yeah.
a thing that is going to build resentment for you for the next 20 years,
Oh, and it
have
could.
that chat now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hmm. The other one too is you're having tough conversations. Like let's talk. And here's the thing. I'm going to put a plug in because I am of the male variety. Pornography, folks. That's a big one. Okay. And I don't care who you're marrying and how wonderful you think he is. If he has not had some exposure to pornography, I would be surprised. Like I would really be surprised. It is so easy anymore so yeah, have a conversation about that. Have a conversation about that now. Is that a problem? Is that something, is it an issue? The other thing you have to talk about is other addictions too. Have we had issues with alcohol? Have we had issues with drugs? Have we had issues with opioids? Have we had other pain medication problems or issues? Things like that need to be talked about. They need to be vetted during this stage because it's really, really, really important.
Once again,
Go ahead.
oh no, go ahead. You're on a roll.
I was going to say legalities. That's another one that we need to throw out. So here's a story. I don't know if this is real, but this is a story that I was told a long time ago. So one day, this couple, newly married, probably 6 months into their relationship and everything, and they're at home one night, and all of a sudden there's bum 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 bum, big knock on the door, and she goes and answers the door, and there's a couple of police officers, and some dog was lost or something like that, and they were looking or helping or something like that. And anyway, just asked a question if they'd seen the dog and everything, if they'd give some help or call this number if they happened to see. Anyway, so she's like, "Oh no, yeah, we'll call whatever. Thanks for stopping by. Hope they find their dog, whatever the case may be." And she shuts the door and she turns around and she's looking. She's like, "Wait a minute, honey, honey." And all of a sudden, he stumbles out of the hall closet.
Oh dear.
Stuff falling, bats and balls and all this kind of stuff falling out. And she's like, what were you doing in the closet? And he said, I think it's time we have a conversation.
Oh, sweet mercy.
Evidently, he had a warrant out for his arrest. Um, and I think it was just unpaid parking tickets or something like that. It wasn't huge or massive or anything, but there was still a warrant out for his arrest, and he thought they had found where he lived. So anyway, that was a problem. So yes, if you have unpaid parking tickets, right? If you have had some type of legal proceedings or something like that, if something is going to show up on your record, you not only need to know about that stuff, but your partner also needs to know that stuff as well. Um, if you are a hot rod and you have a bunch of speeding tickets, you need to tell the other person. Why? Well, holy insurance bill. You know, I mean, you don't want to leave that up to chance or a later conversation. So yeah, there are so many big things that you need to be conversating about. And obviously, as we're talking about these, if you are having those conversations, when you first are dating somebody, it's probably a red flag. You probably shouldn't have those conversations because they're not ready for it and you're not ready to have those. So courtship is saved for a lot of these situations. Did you have any others you wanted to mention before we
I
jump
wanted to
on?
offer clarification again. None of these things are deal breakers. Again, like and
No.
so often in our world, we treat things like breakers. We treat disagreements over politics as a deal breaker. We treat speeding tickets as a deal breaker. We treat just a variety of things as deal breakers. They love dogs. I don't. None of these things have to be deal breakers.
Hmm.
The caveat on that, your need to hide those things could be.
Hmm.
And so it's not so much, oh no, this is this part of my life and they're going to hate me for forever. It's, no, I need to hide this because I'm not good enough if they find out.
Yeah.
That's where the problems live.
Yeah.
Or hiding it from that person. The whole purpose of courtship is, can I go to the next level with this person? You are
Hmm.
doing a disservice to yourself and to the other person the longer you put off these conversations. So
Yeah.
please have them before you make more additional monetary commitments or
Yeah.
before you deepen the octopus that is a relationshipness. That was
Yeah.
a horrible metaphor. We're moving on. The one other piece here that I wanted to talk about, going back to pornography. I am not a huge fan with how we treat it in the culture of Utah that I live in,
Hmm.
which is this, that if you have ever seen it or if you've ever engaged with it, that you're an awful, horrible, shameful person and you need to be
Yeah.
shamed for the rest of your life.
Hmm.
Not helpful. Not helpful. The amount of studies they've done, the amount of things that like the amount of people who've looked into it, shame around this topic only makes it worse. And it changes it from a thing people engages with to a thing that someone is addicted to because of the amount of shame that's around it.
Yeah.
This is not a shaming conversation in any way, shape, or form. It
Hmm.
is an informed conversation because, to put it bluntly, it rewires your brain and makes it a lot harder to connect with a human.
Yeah. It does.
Once you have neural pathways that get built around that, it is a lot easier to engage with pornography than it is with a person,
Hmm.
because a person or needs requires both communication and commitment and conversations and follow-up, and they have needs and wants and you have needs and wants, and it can just become this thing where you go run away because it's easy instead of
Hmm.
staying where it's hard. So in no way do I want to shame, in no way do I want to point fingers. As you said, Spencer, it's everywhere. Like,
Mm.
we're
Yeah.
lying to ourselves if we're pretending that it's not.
Yeah.
So just be honest and be honest about what your game plans are. That's really the whole thing. Any kind
Hmm.
of addiction, any kind of a dependency, anything you're looking at, what's your game
Hmm.
plan?
Yeah.
Like, there is so much power in going, okay, this is either a thing I'm currently struggling with, this is a thing that I have struggled with in the past. What's my game plan? When
Hmm.
this shows up, how can we handle it as a couple? Now,
Yeah.
in some cases, that might be a deal breaker for someone, and that's up to them and their values. And like,
Yeah.
no shame on you if you're going, no, that's a deal breaker for me. I can't. Full respect in the world. What a powerful thing to look at someone in the eyes and say, I love you. I care about you. I honor this is your journey, and I'm sorry. I cannot walk that journey with you.
Yeah.
Because better to know that at courtship than commit to a life with someone and 20 years down the road have resentment build and build and build until the only thing left in the relationship is bitterness.
Hmm.
And ultimately, that's why we have these conversations in courtship is how do we have the conversations to know what are wins for us, what aren't wins for us, where resentment is going to build, because that's where you want to find it out, not
Yeah.
20 years down the road when you can't handle it anymore. And then you're 4 kids in, you're 3 dogs in, your 2 car payments in, and you wake up one morning and go, I can't actually do this anymore.
Yeah, right.
So, and also no shame to you if you're there. Like
No.
there is no
Yeah.
shame anywhere in any of this. We're just
No.
saying whatever stage of your life you're in, communicating can prevent additional heartache and
Hmm.
help you have a better relationship with yourself and with other people.
Yeah.
So please have game plans, have conversations so that you are ready for the next steps in life.
Hmm. And that brings us to another step and another conversation, another big thing that should happen. Um,
Oh
I know. um, we've talked about the conversations. The next thing we need to talk about is this is a time, and there again, this is a tradition that a lot of people blow off or whatever the case might be. I get it. But this is a time in which the two of you should, if you haven't already been introduced to, you better start getting to know the family, right?
no. I hope this has
So,
happened like in the serious to uh serious committed to courtship phase. Like,
mhm.
please say you've at least met a couple members of the family.
Right? Yeah, I mean, that's huge because you don't want to get to marriage and realize you're getting the mother-in-law from hell. You know, it's just, but that happens, you know? And so that's,
Also, you need a game plan for that. If that's a
oh,
deal
yeah.
breaker for your partner that you don't have a
Hmm.
good relationship with your in-laws, that's going to
Hmm.
be a problem later.
Yeah. And so, yeah, meeting the in laws and spending time with them. And also, this is a time where you're getting to know family traditions, right? How do they celebrate Christmas? Do they celebrate Christmas? Do you guys celebrate Christmas? Not everybody does, obviously. How are birthdays done? How are, all these different situations? You're getting to know the family culture because as you progress to the point of getting married, you're not just marrying the person, you marry the family. And you've got to make sure that you have a good, decent relationship. Now, one of the things that's important in this, as I said earlier, is that once you have met the other side of the family, then that gives your partner a chance to go around and say, hey, what do you guys think? And this is informal type of thing, but there is an element of getting everybody's permission as I wave the proverbial quotation marks in the air with my
Air
fingers. Yes, yeah,
quotes for
air
the win.
quotes. Because yeah, you're going to mom, you're going to dad, you're saying, hey, what do you think? Is he good? Blah, blah, all that kind of stuff. And it's good to get everybody's insight and approval because everybody is going to see this individual in different light, different circumstance, different situation. If you are so inclined, maybe you're going off your spending time, like, your father-in-law and all the guys are getting together. So you're going out for a great big camping or hunting trip or thing because that's a big thing in their home. Versus, the ladies get together and have a spa pampering day or go shopping, and you have to outlast every single woman in this weekend shopathon. There's all kinds of different things that we are going to be subject to. But that's the thing. You have to kind of get to know what are they like? And they have to get to know you. So this is kind of a hard thing to do, but you kind of have to let your real self show as much as you possibly can, which isn't always easy. But getting the family's approval is a big, huge, huge thing. And oftentimes we don't always get that. We don't always seek for that, or sometimes we don't even want to ask for that for fear of what might happen. But like I said,
But
their perspective is important.
it is. Well, and it's hard when your partner opts out of that because these are the people that you spent a lifetime with. Maybe you don't talk a lot now. Maybe you only get together at Christmas and Thanksgiving and Memorial Day, whatever it is. But this is blending your past life with your future life. And if the future person has no interest in the past life, you have the potential to give a lot up. And they are a fantastic, your family is a fantastic way to get blackmail and extortion and all of the secrets. Please don't actually do that with your partner. That's not good. But there's story time and things that you're sharing and you're learning that happens quicker when your partner is meeting your family.
Hmm.
And so there are a lot of benefits on both directions. Also, if you're a family that gets together a lot and your partner and your family don't like each other, that makes for a really rough next 50 years of your life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Game plan. That is I think that's what I want to call 5 stages of dating. Have a game plan
Hmm.
for the
Yeah.
dating and the long-term relationship.
Yeah. Because that's absolutely huge. You can't have one without the other. Now, in some situations, in some cases, um, are there some difficult relationships that you might encounter? Yes. So that gives you an opportunity to say, hey, that person is in that particular situation, in that particular category. What I'm talking about is you guys get to build those boundaries as to how you're going to deal with other family members, and especially difficult family members that maybe you need a little bit more space from than others. And that's okay. It may weigh into your choice and your decision as to where you live. If you're going to live on the East Coast or the West Coast, or if you're even going to live in a particular state with anybody else. If you happen to be in the military and stuff, are whose home are you going to go to for Christmas? Are you going to have your own little Christmas celebration? All those different things are important to keep in mind because that helps you understand how the family works and how the family runs. Maybe they're really, really big into fireworks and they have to go to every single fireworks show there is in the state, What if they're big NFL fans, And man, Super Bowl is a religious holiday, but it's never been something you've really given much notice to. These are things that you need to see and experience. Um, you better not show up with the other team's colors, on your I think
Mm,
I think I saw an advertisement of some snack food or something like that at football time, and yeah, you have to watch out. And another big thing, like here in the state of Utah, we've got the BYU University of Utah rivalry, and my parents are big BYU fans. So what did my sisters do? They went out and found University of Utah graduates to marry. So, and I went to Utah State. So it's really one of those things that are really huge. I have to tell you one funny story that I enjoy telling in the whole dating process and things. There was a girl that I was starting to get serious with, and we were kind of like making the transition into a courtship phase. And I remember I drove this brand new, it was beautiful, 2001 Toyota Corolla. I've owned that car for most of my life and put, almost 200,000 miles on it. Anyway, during the course of dating this young lady, her grandparents were getting older, and I can't remember if it was grandma or grandpa. Somebody was close to passing away. Well, they only allowed American-made cars in the driveway. And I didn't know this, right? So I park in the driveway. I am all there and we're all visiting family and stuff. And I happened to be sitting in the living room for a few minutes and she came up to me. We had been there probably like 15, 20 minutes, right? And she's like, "Oh, hey, babe, can you move the car down the street?" And I was like, "Wait, what? Excuse me? Why do I have to do that?" And she's like, "Oh, well, Grandpa doesn't like cars that are not American made." And I was like, "So my Toyota was not welcome. I was welcome, but my Toyota was
but it was
not."
not.
And so you have to be aware of some of those things. If you're going to drive a Chevy, you're going to be heckled by if your in-laws are all Ford drivers and such. These are the things that you kind of have to get to know in the pattern that helps you understand these things. So, the next thing we have to unpack too, in our last few minutes remaining, is that dating changes. So, for example, you're having maybe longer dates, you're seeing the individual for longer. For example, if you haven't seen that person first thing in the morning, this is probably a good time. You probably should do that. And maybe this is me, this might sound really weird, but give them a big old, breath mouth kiss, first thing in the morning without brushing their teeth and seeing how well you can do it. Now, I say that tongue in cheek, and that's kind of funny, but like I said, you have to be able to see this person. You have to see them in different circumstances and different situations. If you don't, you're eventually going to, later on down the road. It just depends upon who, who and how, and how that all works out. So we definitely have to keep in mind that there are different circumstances, different situations that you need to see this person in. Maybe you need to spend an entire day, almost from sun up to sundown. What happens and how do they act or how do they behave when they are so gosh darn tired that they just can't even hardly keep their eyes open? Do they get a little bit loopy or do they get grumpy? Um, so there's a lot of different things. And what I tell my kids is this: you want to choose dates to see them in certain circumstances or certain ways. So if you are big into service, yeah, you got to see how well they last. Here's a funny thing. My daughter and son-in-law went to Disneyland for the first time, and it was I don't know if they knew this before or not, but my poor son-in-law was very queasy on
Mm.
some of the rides. And Disneyland is a big thing in our home and in our family, and we love the parks and stuff like that. So that being said, if something is really, really, really important to you, then you ought to make sure that that works out with your partner before you proceed forth with all this. And dating is the perfect time to do that and see that. See what they look like late at night. See what they look like first thing in the morning. All those different things. Um, okay. The next thing, so there's a lot unpacking there. And like I said, the one thing you can do, this is not a really action time, and I'll tell you what I mean by that in a minute, but this is not a real huge action time. So maybe at this point in time, you're shopping for a ring. Okay, maybe. Um, so the biggest transition, this is probably the easiest part between courtship into engagement is the ring, the engagement ring, and the official asking. Because obviously, hopefully, during this courtship time too, you've talked about, hey, you, me, altar, you think? Maybe?
Don't be the engagement, be the first time you have this conversation.
Yes.
Do not, do not, I repeat, do not have the pro offering of the ring be the first time that you say, hey, you, me, long-term commitment, married? I do. Be the
Hmm.
first time that comes out of your mouth. No.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, 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 no.
Totally.
Hey,
So,
Spencer,
yeah.
did they ask the father?
Now this is kind of interesting because I have yet to have had anybody ask me. Um, I have to make sure that's accurate. Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. When it came time for me to get married, I called my father-in-law a handful of times. He never called me back.
Oh,
But
no.
I did get my wife's stepfather's permission, and I figured that was close enough. But I would say yes, it would be a good idea. And if you want to be traditional, I think it's definitely a wonderful thing. Now, is it an old tradition? Yeah. Is it absolutely 100% necessary? Maybe not. But I do think it is a very cordial thing to do, is to ask permission. What do you think? What's your take on it?
Well, considering I was there for when my ex-husband asked my father, that was just an awkward conversation on like 30 bajillion different levels. So there's its own thing. I don't it does feel very bride pricey, dowry to me, where the suitor goes to the
Hmm.
father and says, basically, I'm buying your daughter, or well, let me take your daughter off the hands for this much money. It feels really old school, not my favorite. On the flip side, I think having conversations with your future father-in-law is important.
Hmm.
I think that is a powerful way to build a future together
Hmm.
because this is someone who raised the person that you love. And there's all sorts of kind of relationships in this life. Like the ideal would be that you're one big happy family and your family and their family all get together. And for big family events, they all come together and everybody's comfortable with each other and it's wonderful. The more I live this life, the more I realize that is a pipe dream that might happen 1% of the time. Um, so it'd be great if that happened. The flip side of that is that it's very toxic. It's not a healthy, it's not a positive environment. You have boundaries up the wazoo to keep everybody safe, and you move to like another continent. Those are sort of our two different options here. And I think most people generally live somewhere in the middle. Maybe
Hmm.
you don't see each other all the time, but wouldn't it be wonderful to have a conversant relationship with them when you do see them? Wouldn't it
Hmm.
be wonderful to be able to talk and engage and enjoy each other's company when you are together? So maybe it's not a formal, I'd like to marry this such and such person in your life, but maybe it is, hey, we've been talking. We would like to take this next step. Are there thoughts? Are there concerns? Are there conversations that would be helpful for us to have? What are
Hmm.
your hopes for your child? And have it be more of a conversation than and less perhaps a get down on one knee, please will you let me marry your daughter? But I do think that there is a lot of power in conversation. There is so much power in conversation and being able to be comfortable with the people that you're going to be at least marginally spending some of your time with for the rest of the time you're with this person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I love that. I think that's what's interesting about this whole entire process is there are some old traditions that people say, oh, that's old fashioned or that's old or that's old school or whatever the case might be. But you know what? There was actually a reason and a purpose behind why some of these things happened. And because we've dropped a lot of them, um, it doesn't necessarily mean we can't bring them back and that traditions can't be passed on as a good practice for the future.
and be
So,
repurposed to create what you'd like to create in your life.
yeah.
Really, this all comes back to intentionality. We
Yeah.
said that last time. I'm going to bring it up this time. Whatever you're doing in a relationship with another person, please be intentional.
Hmm.
Building connections with them, be intentional. The conversations you're having, be intentional. The relationships with their family members, be intentional.
Hmm.
Maybe it's not going to be a fairy tale. Maybe it is. Like when you were mentioning, how do you know? I really wanted to burst into, how does she know you love her? But that is legitimately the question that we're trying to answer as you move from courtship to engagement. And
Yeah.
if you don't know how to answer those questions, maybe put a pause on moving from courtship to engagement for both of you.
Hmm.
And if you can't have conversations like that with their family, what's your game plan
Hmm.
to build future there? One of my neighbors, her husband's family are big into big gifts. They really love giving like really lovely, expensive gifts.
Oh, wow.
And so they went to this couple and said, we'd really love to give you this new car. And she looked at them and said, no, thank you. It's like, I would happily take a new car.
Yeah, right.
But her thing was, there are things we need to figure out as a couple, and that gift would shortchange that.
Hmm.
Now, it's not so much about the car, because like my parents have given, like, I've bought cars off of them for cheap and different things like that. But she did not want his parents coming in to shortchange a discussion they needed to have as a couple.
Hmm.
And so I think it is important to be on the same, you don't have to start on the same page, but let's hope you at least end sort of near the similar paragraph.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. That's totally true. Yeah, that's it's important to have. So I know we spent a lot of time on courtship tonight.
For a
And
thing that
and
doesn't exist anymore, we sure deep
I
dove.
know, right? We sure nailed that sucker. Um, but I think it's important that we do, know that it is extremely important and it is something that's missed and it is something that people don't go through anymore. And there's a problem with that. And if you want to, if you're worried or concerned or wanting to make the right decision, all that kind of stuff, this is something that's not to be missed. This is something that is not to be skipped.
And maybe you're listening to us going, well, I've been married for 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I missed it. It's never too late to have these conversations. It's
Mm-hmm.
really not. The amount of things that we let fester because we say it's too late. Okay, what if you yank the lid off of that can of worms and it all goes to pot for a little while? First, my my purest condolences. I am so sorry because chaos is scary.
Mm-hmm.
Second, though, chaos for a time is better than resentment for eternity. So if we have brought up anything that you're like, oh, that has been bugging me for 15 years, please go have the conversation
Mm-hmm.
because this is the person you've committed to and are hopefully vulnerable with and intimate with. And this person sees more of you than anybody else on this planet in a variety of ways.
Hmm.
Be intentional.
Yeah.
Rip that band-aid off. Share things
Hmm.
with them. Your connection, whether it's wonderful or it needs work, can be a growing and evolving and changing thing. And as
So
the
true.
person in that relationship, let's be active. Let's be proactive. Let's keep improving things. So if you didn't even realize courtship was a thing you could do, now is your chance. If there's something
Hmm.
that's bugging you, please engage with it. Don't let the resentment and the bitterness build because we can do things when we choose to act. So it's
Hmm.
kind of teeing us up for next time where we finish up engagement, we look at marriage. Um, but also, I would love to have a chat around attachment styles and communication. It is never too late to have a conversation. And I
Hmm.
think we are all amazed at what can change because of a conversation.
So true.
So that's my plug for joining us next week because we have not yet delved as deep as we could into this topic. Shocker, I know. I'm
I
not
know,
trying.
right? And it's funny too. When I set out, to record this, I was like, I was not planning on it being this big or this scattered or this crazy or whatever the case might be. It was just one of those things that, yeah, we needed to spend this amount of time on it, and that's what's important. All right. So, you ready to wrap things up for tonight?
It is
Here we
time.
go. It is time. Thank you, my friends, for taking the time and the opportunity to chat with us and be a part of our journey in this podcast. I've said that way too many times, but anyway, it is what it is. You are very, very special. And we are talking to you right now, individually, at this moment, no matter where you're listening, no matter when you're listening, no matter how you might be listening to this. You are important, my friend. You are loved and you are cared for and you are special. You bring such amazing, unique talents to this world. And as we go through this process and as we learn more about these tools and about these things, we talk about these important concepts. You've got this. You can do this. You can do hard things. You can make things better and change things for the better. And that's something only you can do for yourself. And you are amazing and you can do hard things and you can become the version of yourself on this journey that you want to become.
So thank you for joining us and taking steps on that journey of intentionally choosing the future that you'd like to build for yourself and for the world around us. At the end of the day, we do it for each one of you because, as Spencer said, you matter. Your unique gifts and talents and perspectives matter. And as each one of us brings those unique gifts and talents and perspectives, the world gets to be a brighter and better place. So thank you for joining us and thank you for sharing. And we look forward to seeing you all next week. I mean, we're not going to see you, you'll see us. But if you choose to like or comment or subscribe or engage, we're building a community here. And that's what we want to do. We want to build a community where each one of us as individuals can have the support we need to go on this journey that we're on. So, thank you for joining us. We look forward to next time. And if you want additional information, you have questions, please comment. Please reach out on our Facebook page, Exemplary Function Podcast, because we can better serve you when we know what it is that you want to hear and what you want to talk about. So, thank you. Until next time.